Just general?
Just general about the taxes.
We can talk in the budget hearing. That's first, if you don't want to stay the whole time.
Well, I want to stay the whole time. They need me at some point, put me in, or I can talk.
Budget?
Good evening, Courtney.
Hi, Dan. Could you hear him? Okay. Did you hear him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay. Dan, did you hear that? When we vote, we have to see your face.
That's what I'm trying to get to work right now, so I can't get video yet. Let me look at it.
Okay, perfect.
Good evening and welcome to the Metropolitan School District of Martinsville School Board meeting. I would ask that everybody please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and afterward as a moment of silence. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the Metropolitan School District of Martinsville School Board. We have several special sessions tonight, so I just wanted to pass the word along that it'll be 3 meetings before we get to the regular school board meeting. First of all, I'd like to introduce the board. I'm sitting in for the president tonight. I'm Matt Hankins, vice president of the school board. Jackie Deckard is to my left. She is the secretary.
That's Heather Staggs.
Heather Staggs, excuse me. Jackie Deckard.
You can call me Jackie, it's fine.
And then Luke Jackson, who is our board member, and is with us. And then Dan Conway, who is by virtual, is also with us this evening. To my right is Eric Boland, our superintendent, and to his left is, or to his other right, is Susie Lips, who is the assistant to the superintendent. On behalf of the board and administration, I'd like to thank you all for attending in person. So the first order of business tonight, we will be doing a special session of a budget hearing. So I'll turn that over to Eric to discuss what we're going to be doing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hankins. We have the 2024 notice to the taxpayer Form 3. We have Mr. Staley from Baker Tilly who is going to speak to that for us. So, Mr. Staley, if you can come up to the mic. And I know that we've had a little issue with audio, so I'm asking all the board members and speakers to speak directly into the mic so that the audience virtually can hear you. I apologize for that.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Boland. I think we have everything on here. So again, my name is Jay Staley. I'm with Baker Tilly, serving as a municipal advisor, the financial advisor to the school district. So we're working through the budget hearing for the 2024 budget. And so we held last week the budget workshop. And so just coming back tonight to do the public hearing of which we'll open it up later for any public comment. So as far as the agenda, going through what the budget process looks like, kind of from a 30,000-foot view, talking through some budgeting principles for school business, the proposed 2024 budget, and then talking through some next steps. And if, as I mentioned last week, I have a tendency to talk fast, so if there's any questions that you have, the board's heard this a few times now, but if there's questions that you have, please stop me and ask those. So the budgeting process overall, the purpose, we're trying to establish the high water mark for the appropriations that the DLGF, the Department of Local Government Finance, will approve the school to be able to spend. So appropriation means authority to spend. So whatever dollars that you're receiving from various either taxes or from the state in your basic tuition, you have to have the authority to be able to spend those dollars. So we're working to establish that high water mark. Once we establish those, we're able to establish the tax levy as well as any other dollars that are coming in the door, then we can establish the tax rates based upon that as well. And this is just for your appropriated funds. And so the appropriated funds are listed there. The three that affect the MSD of Martinsville, the education fund, your operations fund, and your debt service fund are your three appropriated funds. So when you look at your fund list or your fund report that you receive each month, you'll notice a whole host of other funds, but these are the only ones that are required by state statute in order to have authority to spend out of. So the budget process, again, is prescribed by state statute. So there's a window of time. We have to have all this wrapped up by the end of October. November 1st is the magic date to be able to get things submitted. So we held the budget work session last week on 9/14. Tonight is the public hearing on 9/21. The board will be asked to consider to adopt the budget at your next board meeting in October. Then once all that's done, we have 5 days to send your budget off to the Department of Local Government Finance. They will then work the budget, and they will return a document to you referred to as a 1782 notice. And you'll have that typically before the end of the calendar year. Oftentimes it'll fall over Christmas break. But we'll have about a 10-day window to respond to it. So as we talk through tonight, many of the things that we have in here is going to be conservative. And that is for a reason, because there's information that we don't have as we're working the budget. And as the DLGF goes through the process, more of these variables will fall in place. And so once you receive that document back, then the district will have the opportunity to respond, to be able to adjust the rate, adjust tax levy, whatever it may be. So more information to come on that front. So the budget cycle in and of itself is an 18-month snapshot. So we're taking a look at the back half of this year, so of the 2023 budget, as well as planning your 2024 budget. And so we spent some time with the district collecting data. 2 additional documents that were posted on the corporation website was your bus replacement plan as well as your capital plan. And so that's capital assets that cost $10,000 for a singular item, or also your capital projects that you may spend out of your operations fund that are also $10,000 in nature. So those are listed out on that capital asset plan. So we've taken all that information, plugged it in, developed some projections, and as we talk through this, again, they're going to be very conservative in nature, and we'll talk a little more about how we do that. And so on the expenditure side, from a conservative aspect, we're looking to plan high. So December 31st of 2024 is a long way off. You have a lot of unknown situations that may arise, and so we try to build in some additional appropriation within your budget to make sure that you can navigate those at the time, so you don't have to go back and ask for more as we go through this process. And then obviously there's, again, those unforeseen issues that may come up. So you have emergencies, unfunded mandates. One that came about this year was with the curriculum materials item. And so while the state is funding a portion of that, there's a portion that's not being funded by the state that the district is going to have to be able to absorb. And so having the additional appropriation within your budget is imperative to be able to do those things. On the opposite side of the equation is the revenue side. And so from a conservative aspect, we're going to estimate your revenues low. And so a couple of items that you're missing as you work this budget. So the ADM count, or your student count, is now in October. October 2nd is that magic date. Still not here, so we're not exactly sure what the funding is going to look like for the rest of this year in your education fund until we know that number. You have a count day February 1st of next year, which will impact your 2024 education budget. And you also have a count day next October that will affect your 2024 education budget. And so trying to guesstimate what those counts are going to be is important as we work to build this. The assessed value, so the county released your assessed value. You saw some growth within the assessed value for 2024. One thing that gets a little tricky with this is all of the assessed value has not been released. If there were any appeals that are still hanging out there, those assessed values have been suppressed at this time. So there is what's referred to as your abstract levy. That is the actual levy that you'll collect, but that's not going to be identified until later next year. And so, again, we're kind of working with some numbers, but not all the information as we go through here. And then obviously you have some miscellaneous income from license excise tax, commercial vehicle tax, et cetera. So those are all built into the revenue projections that we have. So for I'll stop there. Any questions before we keep going? As I said, I know you guys have heard this a couple times, so I'm just kind of breezing through here. For the proposed 2024 budget, so thinking back to, as I mentioned, you have 3 appropriated funds that we're asking for appropriation from the DLGF: Education Fund, Operations, and Debt Service. And so I think a couple things to keep in mind as you look at this is, unlike my checking account at home where all the money goes into one pot and you can make your car payment, your house payment, buy groceries, whatever it is, all out of one fund, the state prescribes what we can spend certain dollars out of certain funds. And so within the education fund, it's truly for instructional expenses. We'll have a slide here later that breaks down what that looks like by percentage, but the revenue that's supporting it is the state tuition coming in, as well as some miscellaneous revenue that you may collect along the way. And so that's very few and far between as far as the miscellaneous revenue. Within the operations fund, it's for operational expenses, and so that's to pay for the maintenance of buildings, it's paying your transportation staff, it's paying your custodial staff, it's paying, if we're going to carpet a building, we can do some of those things within the operations fund. So it's truly the fiscal plant of the district. And again, back to the education fund as far as instructional salaries. So we're paying teacher salaries out of the education fund. That would not come from the operations fund or vice versa. So we have certain delegated pots of money that we have to spend from. And then lastly is the debt service fund. And truly you have to have a debt obligation. So if there's not a debt obligation, you're not able to pay for that particular thing out of the debt service funds. For instance, you couldn't use debt proceeds in order to pay salaries because it has to be a capitalized item that you leverage a debt obligation for. And your operations and your debt service are going to be made up of property tax as well as some of those miscellaneous revenues that I mentioned. And then your operations fund is also receiving some dollars from the education fund. So whenever the fund structure that we have now, as we inherited it, there's a need to transfer dollars from education to operations based upon the way the old funds were set up and how the state made some changes in 2019. So roughly you're transferring about 13.5% from education to operations to cover those expenses that used to be in the old general fund. So that was a lot of information. Sorry about that. All right, next piece, as far as the proposed budget. So this is where we talked also about the advertised. And so I want to make sure I note that it's advertised budget. So whenever we advertise the budget, the DLGF will not raise the rate, the tax rate, the tax levy, or the budget amount. So they will lower them, they just will not raise them. And so you need to advertise those high. And so we put some historical information on there just to give you a snapshot of what that has typically looked like in the past. And so proposed budget for 2024, within your 3 funds, you'll notice the rainy day fund we're not asking for an appropriation for, so that total budget's a little over $57 million with tax levy of approximately $16.9 million and the advertised rate of that 94 cents. So as you look down from an advertised rate in the past at 74, it came in at 65.30. The year prior in 2022 it was advertised at 79.78 and came in at 65.30. And so once we receive the 1782 notice back from the DLGF, we'll be able to lower the rate, lower the levy to get it to meet the guideline in which the district would like it to be able to fall into. So again, advertised rate, it's not what is being approved by the DLGF or subsequently what the rate will be once the district has a chance to respond with the 1782 notice. So within each of your funds, so similar to a pie chart, each box that's on here represents kind of the share that particular object code is making up of your education fund. So the bigger the box, the more money that's being spent in that particular area. The state prescribes accounting codes at which we code expenditures to. And so the 100 series is for salaries, the 200 series for benefits, 300 is for other items as far as professional services, professional development, et cetera. And so the blue box, 63.4% is being spent on your salaries, In the instructional staff realm, 20% on benefits. So roughly 84%, a little over 84% of your education budget is on salary and benefits. And then you can see where the other items break down. So again, the lion's share is on salary and benefits within your instruction or within your education fund. For the operations fund, it's a little more balanced. So we have roughly 34% or almost 35% on salaries. The benefits, you can see where those fall. So we're a little less than 50% within the operations fund, or roughly 50% salary and benefits. But you see some other things that have popped up. Supplies are a large item. So when you think of the necessary cleaning supplies, those type of things that are needed for the district, as well as equipment. Equipment is also a large piece. So as you're buying buses, those are large purchases, as well as scrubbers to be able to clean, maintenance vehicles for the district. And so those are kind of where the dollars go to within the operations fund. And then lastly is the debt service fund. So this is the current outstanding debt that the district has. Each of the little stacks within the bar represents a bond series. And so you have a bond series that is expiring going into 2024. The gray bar is being paid off, as well as the kind of the orange bar on top. We see a much less payment in future years. And so as we've talked through, and we'll talk a little later about tax rate management and managing your debt fund and being able to address facility needs across the district, you have some debt coming off, so it's an opportunity to be able to replace some debt and to be able to manage the tax rate as you move forward to be able to meet the needs of the school district. As far as next steps, again, we've kind of gone through, this is an 18-month project or projection. We're establishing the high water marks for what those appropriations would be. We've taken a very conservative approach both on the expenditure side, so we're estimating some expenditures high, we're estimating revenues low. Just a reminder about advertised versus what subsequently gets approved. And then lastly is kind of next steps. So as we started the meeting, we'll have the public hearing tonight, and then the board will consider adoption on 10/12, and then awaiting that final DLGF approval by the end of the school year. So that is it. I'm happy to take any questions from the board before I turn it back over to Mr. Bowen.
Any questions? Do we need to open up the public hearing portion now? And we'll move forward.
Okay.
So, Mr. Hankins?
Do we have any public comments from the audience who would like to speak? You'll have 3 minutes.
Jerry Smith.
Yeah, I'll be really brief. These budget numbers are at a pretty high level, so I don't really know the part I'm interested in where exactly it fits. I spoke last time for a few minutes at the last meeting about curriculum, and I had suggested that the board should look at getting the Hillsdale curriculum. It's a curriculum that's straight education and doesn't have any, political beefs in it, no wokeness, CRT, ELG, or all this other stuff, no communist stuff, and the best part is it's free. How much are we spending on curriculum right now? So how much would we save? I don't know the answer to that. I just want you to think about that when you're going through it and be thinking about it. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Do we have any others?
Bill Mitchell.
Well, to bring it closer home, people, I'm a bus driver. And we're behind on everybody else in the area's wages. $20 to $30 a day behind everybody else in this. You see, picked up this tax form. I didn't bring it with me. But anyway, we're getting behind. Right now in Martinsville, bring it to home, we have 4 routes right now. It has to double up because we can't find bus drivers to drive the routes. And you heard what we need to keep the bus drivers rolling, because it's going to eventually get back, if we don't keep money coming in to help the bus drivers and the other things that would come out of this budget, we're going to have people start bringing kids to school, because we can't have buses run out there so long, because we only can have the kids on the bus for so long. And we double up routes, it just takes another say another 45 minutes to run, or 30 minutes to run another route because you pick up more kids and got more roads to cover. So if you don't have a full fleet of buses to run on every route to make it within limits time to haul your kids to school, then you double them up, and sometimes it's going to be rough to get them in school because we can't use Paragon example. It's further away. Some bus drivers right now, when they have a double route, don't even get out of that bus of a morning from 6 o'clock till 8:30 because they're running so hard to get down to Paragon and the areas outside of the long areas to bring in double kids because we can't get bus drivers because nobody wants to work. And our average age of bus drivers is not staying very low. I'm 75 and been driving for 35 years. So my health has been pretty good, but we got some bus drivers now that are getting health problems. They want to drive, but CDLs won't let us drive for a certain time. So I'm in favor of what they asked for more rate, for more money for the education and the runs like that, because that's right. This is out at your doorstep. If bus drivers coming up picking up your kids, or you bringing kids to school eventually, if we don't keep raising taxes, which I hate. I hate raising taxes, but also we need to keep the kids coming in school and bringing them in. So, and if you look at the tax rates, you look at Eminence, a small school, and their tax rate's higher than ours. They don't have near as many buildings to maintain, nothing like that to maintain. So just look at your charts and see what the schools, because you're out of your communities, we ought to know how the other schools are getting by. Martinsville's got a lot more buildings to take care of than Eminence has got 4 that I know of. So, and look at their tax rate. So we're really slacking behind as far as our kids being neglected and you parents being neglected for maybe future down the road if we don't keep going along with a good balanced budget for the rest of driving the state of Indiana. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Bill.
Anybody? We have somebody in the audience. Yes.
I didn't know if there was a list of things on the way. I'm John Fletcher. Some questions here. The proposed debt service rate, as it's proposed now, is 0.9461. Am I correct?
Jay, you want
Total, or that's the total rate. Our total rate for this year is like 0.65. So this is about a 30-cent increase in the proposed rate. Advertised proposed rate. Yeah, I understand that. I'm a township trustee, so I know a little bit about this. So the majority of this is for debt service, correct? It's a 73% increase. The additional 20 cents. So that's what I'm getting at here, is there's an additional 20 cents going to go on to our property taxes to sustain this debt service. What all is this debt service for, this new debt service? Okay, all right. Well, how much is that 20 cents going to impact the average person per 100,000? It's on there. So you're not going to answer that during this meeting? After the budget hearing. It's not part of the budget hearing. You're not going to answer this question. During the bond hearing. Okay, well, I think it ought to be answered during this hearing because this is about the proposed taxes and so forth. When do the other bond expires? You said there's one that expires in 2024? This year. How much will that take off our tax rate? You don't know. So we do not have an answer for that either. I think you pretty well answered my questions by not answering them. Thank you.
And advertised and approved rates are very different. Is that correct, Jake? So if we advertise it what we are, doesn't mean that's where it's going to fall. So we need to.
And the advertised is higher than the approved. The advertised, it would never go above that. It would go below. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Boland?
I think that is it. So
That's it?
now this part of this
Okay.
hearing would close.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn this meeting for the budget hearing.
I'll second.
There's been a motion to adjourn and seconded. All those in favor, signify. We have to do a roll call.
Yes.
So, Dan?
Aye.
Luke?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Matt? Aye. Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Next meeting that we have is the bond hearing. And I will turn that over to Mr. Bolin, who will introduce our next speaker.
Okay, now, this hearing deals with the bond, which gets into the specifics that our last speaker just spoke of. So Jacob McClellan from Bose McKinney and then Mr. Staley are going to talk about the bond and how it is impacted with the debt rate.
Thank you,
Jacob?
Mr. Superintendent. Thank you, members of the board. Jacob McClellan with Bose McKinney and Evans. We are the school's bond counsel. If it makes sense, I'll talk high level about the 5 different items that you're going to either go through authorization-wise or consider for approval tonight. And then we can go through each of them, and as there's questions, feel free to ask me. But tonight on your, you have the first hearing, which is a 1028 hearing. So the purpose of that hearing is to take comment from the public and to have considered the tax impact. That resolution goes through the not-to-exceed amount of the bonds and goes through the potential tax impact. And the next hearing after that will be the appropriation hearing, and that is to take public comment on the appropriation of the proceeds of the bonds into your budget. So then when you get into the actual normal board meeting, you will have the bond resolution to consider, which gives specifics around the sale of the bond and the issuance of the bonds, the 1028 resolution to consider, which again relates to the public hearing to consider the impact of the bond on your tax rate, and that's required because the bonds are payable from property tax and are for a project that will cost greater than $1 million. And then the appropriation resolution, which it would be the approval to appropriate the funds into your budget. So overall, the bonds and the authorizations would approve a general obligation bond, and the authorizations include parameters that Jay provided for a bond not to exceed $6,105,000. That's the not to exceed. You guys could use less than that or issue less than that. A rate not to exceed 6% with a final maturity of not later than January 15th of 2025. It authorizes a paying agent agreement, the sale of the bonds via competitive sale. It also authorizes negotiation if Baker Tilly advises and you guys agree that that's more advantageous. It authorizes the publication of a notice of determination, which would be required, assuming all approvals, everything is approved tonight. And these also authorize a catch-all to allow the superintendent and the board members to sign anything and take any and all action necessary for the issuance of the bonds. As far as timing, assuming everything were adopted tonight, we would have a notice of determination that goes into the newspaper. We would work with Baker Tilly on the marketing or the offering document, and we would be looking at probably sending out a notice of intent to sell bonds, assuming we do a competitive sale in early October, with potentially a pricing in late October and a closing in mid-November. And I should, just one other item, for purposes of just the record, the project includes, but it's not limited to, and this is a broad project to allow a lot of flexibility to you all on what you spend the funds on, but the construction renovation of and improvements to existing school corporation facilities, including HVAC, roof, and plumbing renovations, repairs, improvements, and replacements, and athletic complex barrier, fencing, bleacher, and related renovations and improvements, acquisition of school equipment, including but not limited to radios, police cars, public safety equipment, Chromebooks, generators, and other related equipment, repair and improvement of school facilities that have encountered storm damage, construction, renovation, equipping, and improvement of security systems, at the school's existing facilities, including the installation and upgrading of door access systems, security camera systems, a new radio system, including infrastructure and backup support systems and other related security improvements, and equipping installation of solar equipment and improvements at all school corporation facilities, and other renovations, improvements, equipping, and upgrades at all school corporation facilities, and incidental expenses in connection therewith. And so that's a broad authorization. Those are the things that are authorized for you to spend funds on. That doesn't necessarily mean that you would do all of those things. It just means that you've authorized those. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jay, or I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if any questions pop up, I'm happy to take them at any time. But Jay can talk about the financial aspects of the financing, and then would be the time to take public comment.
Thank you.
Do you have the other presentation?
Okay,
So for the,
Sorry. It's so, Mr. Conway can hear the speakers.
all right,
all right,
give
give this a shot.
So within the
So within the
project
project
hearing
hearing
for
for
the
the
geobonds that are
proposed,
is looking
is
at the
looking at the
financial
financial
framework. So
framework,
the
so
school
the school
district
district started
back in,
That's not what it
Sorry.
I guess. Start
Go
over.
ahead. All right. So the school district began looking at just financial planning framework back, I think in January is kind of when we started down this path. And so within that, we started talking about collecting data. So what's enrollment going to look like? Facility needs. So the district has had a facility study done to determine the cost to be able to renovate existing facilities or potentially look at other facilities that would best meet the needs of the school district. We took a look at the tax base analysis. And so we've started gathering information. We put it into a comprehensive financial plan, projecting out where we think your cash flow is going to be in the education operations and your rainy day fund, as well as debt service over the next 5-year period of time. And so with that, as we started having some of that conversation, we were looking at tax rates. And so I believe some of this information may be shared. So as you look at the scatter plot, each plot is representative of a tax rate for a school district within the state of Indiana. And so you see where Martinsville falls within that. And so they're kind of spread out. There's no, as far as the legend going across the bottom, there's no reason why. It's just a matter of spreading them out. If not, they would all just kind of be on top of each other. And so you see where Martinsville falls within that. So it's 6530, which we had mentioned earlier. Down below, you see a note where the state of Indiana in 2023, the average rate, and this is cumulative rate, so operations, debt service, any referendum rates that have been added on, was a little over $1.05 is what the average rate was for the state of Indiana in 2023. So when we kind of bring that closer to home, we took a look at your county schools, conference schools, and then just some other area neighboring schools to see where tax rates fall. And so as you can see, Martinsville had the lowest rate within that group at 6530, as we mentioned, next followed by Monroe County at 6945, and then you can see where the others are falling along that line. So within that tax rate, they're made up of multiple funds. And so the first one, where you see Martinsville there, you see two funds indicated by the two colors that are there. So the gold is the operations fund, and so that is currently has a tax levy of 40.39 cents. And then your debt service fund has a rate of 24.91 cents. And so as you compare throughout the other schools, you start to see another color come into play. Actually, you see two additional colors come into play. There's a little green sliver on the top of Mooresville Community Schools, and that is a pension debt that is still being paid off. Most school districts have just about have those paid. And so that I'm assuming will be coming off soon, but it is tax rate neutral. So it is simply lowering their operations levy. So even when that pension debt pays off, it's not going to impact their rate coming down because it was a tax rate neutral debt whenever it was issued 20 years ago. The other colors that are on there are purple, and so those are representative of operating referendums and/or construction capital referendums that have been approved throughout those communities. And so you can kind of compare and see where each of the individual schools fall within that tax rate. And so, as we've noted earlier, the rate is lower than many of the school districts. And so, as the district looked at their facility study and was trying to identify meeting the needs of the district from a facility aspect, we started projecting out the amount of dollars available based at that tax rate. And it wasn't going to be enough to be able to accomplish it. So as we started talking through strategies, increasing the debt rate is the way to be able to get the dollars to attack the facility plan that you're currently working through. Second slide here is, again, additional peer tax rates. So the first one had county and conference. This is broken down by schools that are contiguous or that may look like the school district from a makeup standpoint. The one thing to note, and so the two school districts that have a lower debt service rate within these peer comparison groups is Monroe County and Eminence, which was mentioned earlier. Monroe County, obviously a much larger school district, Eminence a much lower school district, but the one thing the two of them have in common is that they both have an operating referendum. And so they're bringing in additional dollars to be able to support the district above by having a little lower rate as well. So that is a couple things within the assessed value and tax rate. So any questions from the board before we kind of move on to the next piece? I know you've seen this a few times here. So chart of debt. So again, this is the same information that was in the last slide, just in a different format as far as the color scheme, and kind of zoomed out a little bit. But you have some debt falling off this year, and so looking at, as you issue this bond, how do you want to structure those payments? Do you want to maintain as we've talked about, the tax rate staying totally flat? Is it the debt rate flat? Or are you wanting to try to increase the rate in order to address the facility needs that the district has identified? And so kind of that was the questions that we asked in the goal. What's the goal that you're looking to achieve as a school district? And so some things that we've identified: one, you have one of the lowest tax or the lowest tax rate amongst your peers within debt service and overall. The facility study identified about $95 million in construction needs. And that was if they were bid out and performed this past summer. And so as we know, or this summer in 2023, as we know, inflation takes a hold. And so what's that look like in future years as you're looking at those particular needs? As I mentioned earlier, the current rate at the 25-cent will not generate the revenue to be able to tackle that. So that's where we started running through different scenarios to see where what rate might be able to start getting close. The other thing to note is that's just construction costs. It's not the soft costs that go along with the equipment, other things that you may need to handle those particular construction projects. So there is a desire, as the board's been working through, to improve facilities. You've engaged in a master facility planning team that you're working to assess, so that you'll be working through that process to identify what the district would like to do, what's the vision look like as you move forward the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years from a facility standpoint. And then also, as we mentioned, you have some expiring debt that's coming off, that's giving you the opportunity to be able to not only issue these bonds, but then determine what you want the future debt service total to look like. As Jacob mentioned earlier, we are looking to issue these as a general obligation bond. And so each community has a specific amount of general obligation debt that you're able to issue. And so the calculation is listed there, but roughly you have $6.2 million, almost $6.3 million of general obligation capacity that you could issue, and the bond that's being approved or being recommended is that you would be at about $6.1 million that you could issue if you wanted to issue the full amount, is what the authorization would be. So from a payback parameter perspective, and so this is kind of setting some maximum pieces, it would be a repayment term of 1 year. So they would all be paid back in 2024. So once they expire, then you're able to then reassess and see what next year looks like as you're going through that long-range planning perspective. So as you spend time over the next year identifying projects that you would like to start bringing online, you would be able to create some additional capacity by these bonds paying off. So you would have an expected proceeds of approximately $5.9 million to go towards the project. The tax rate impact, if you decide to pay it off in 1 year, would be a a little over 15-cent increase from where you are, with a maximum debt service rate of 0.3999. So As we go back a couple slides, it was 2435, I think, and change. So that's where, when you add the 1508 on top of it, it moves that debt service rate to 0.3999, would be the, if you would pay it back all in 1 year. One thing to note on that is that rate could come down. It's going to depend on some of those factors that we talked about during the budget hearing. What's miscellaneous revenue look like? Assessed value, when we plug in the NAV, what does that look like? So it may not quite be that high. It's also going to be dependent on what the interest rate is when we sell it. So the bond that we're built, as we built in the payment to do the projection, was built on a 6% interest rate for a coupon. Conservative, we sold bonds today that came in much lower than that. So again, you can't predict the market. What's it going to look like when you sell toward the end of October in that neighborhood? But that's where we build in the fluff with the 6%. So if the interest is less than that, then certainly it's going to take a less of a payment, which is then going to be a little less of a tax rate that would be needed in order to make that payment again in 1 year. So as far as the chart now, we updated the 2024 to show the one big payment, which is the gold bar in 2024. And then as you can see, by paying it off, then you have the flexibility to determine what you want to do in the future in 25 and beyond to, again, address those needs that have been identified. Once again, $95+ million. And so it's certainly going to take a larger tax rate to generate that type of revenue to do the facility improvements that you would like to consider. So what's that look like now within your peer group? It moves you a little further down that continuum. So the rates that are listed on here are being based on 2023 rates, not 2024 rates, because we're not sure where the other school districts are going to fall within this. But as we drop yours in at that 80-cent mark, if your rate came in at 0.399, that's where your total rate would be, is about 80.38. So when we go back to the whole advertised at 90-something cents versus where it could be approved, if you're at 0.399, you would have a total rate of about 80.38 is based on the current information that we have. As far as taxpayer impact, what's it mean to individual homeowners? And so there's two different columns that are listed there. One is a monthly impact and one is an annual impact. So raising that debt rate to 0.399 would have a monthly impact if someone had a market value. So when you open up your assessment in the spring and you see what your home value is, if it says $100,000 on there, you have deductions that occur, as we've talked about before. And so what actually gets taxed is the 33.8 number that's listed. And when you multiply that tax rate increase by the 33.8 in that example, it would be a $4.25 impact to that homeowner for each month, or a $50.97 increase for the year. We put a footnote at 211 because that was the median home value within the school district. So you have half the population is above, half the population being lower. So it would be $13.31 would be a monthly impact, and just shy of $160 for an annual impact as far as additional taxes to be able to support that particular bond. And again, it would be a 1-year payback term is the structure that is currently being considered. Certainly, if there's a desire to do something different, we can approach that as well. Happy to take questions that the board may have.
I think you kind of mentioned this a little bit ago, but just from a public perspective, we're coming to the public and we're saying this is the advertised rate. We wouldn't be coming back and have to go higher than that. It would be lower, but we wouldn't have to come back and say, folks, it's got to be higher. Is that correct?
Correct. In 2024, whatever you advertise, you would not be able to go higher than. It would come down based on that.
Okay.
Right. And then, yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
And just so that we're all clear, if this were approved and we move forward, the average property owner, that increase would be $160 a year. That's what that would.
Based on those current payment terms, at a maximum,
Okay.
yes. So if the rate should come in a little less,
Okay.
then it would come down a little less than that,
Okay.
yes.
So
Correct.
that's annually, not monthly.
Well, he had both monthly.
Yeah.
You want to put that up just again one more time?
Yeah, so we can see
So
that.
everybody can see that again. I think that would be
I
good.
just want to make sure people aren't getting scared. This is.
Because you can see the 300,000 even home and the, yeah, here we go.
Yeah, so just again, to walk through it, so the home value is on the left, so again, that's your assessed value price. And when it says net assessed value, that's after deduction. So if you have your homestead deduction, everybody receives a supplemental homestead deduction of $48,000. I'm sorry, you have the homestead deduction, there's a supplemental piece. So that supplemental deduction is roughly 35%, although there's some changes within legislation over the next couple of years that's suppressing that a bit, but roughly, or it's increasing it. So as you look through there, the monthly impact ranges from $425 for a $100,000, someone has a value home of $100,000, to $300,000 at $2,058 a month. And then as you look over to the far right, it gives you the annual impact of just shy of $51 a month up to just a little over $247. So within that range is what is between those properties. And so that would be if it's a homestead. If it's a rental property, there's no deduction, and so then it would be multiplying that rate by the market value of the particular property.
Any other questions, board members?
I have to open it up
We ready
for public
for public
comments.
comment? Okay, do we have anybody for public comment?
We do not.
Anybody in the audience?
I'm Shelley Campbell. Just had a question. When I look at this pure tax rate that you are quoting off of, and it says Martinsville is 0.65, and we add 0.39, that puts it 1.04, does it not, Jay?
So you're adding it on to the top. So you add it on to the 24, it's going on to the this number is being replaced.
So you don't count that one? Okay.
This number is also going to change a bit, as you assess the value of your board and your operations levy, so that's going to go down as well.
Okay, so here's my question, or here's what I want to better understand. We have a white elephant in the room. We have $95 million of spending that we need to do, I hear, correct? Right. So we have decreasing enrollment. I don't know. I think we do. And then we have a lot of additional cost to the schools. I think we're bringing in a lot of mental health counselors, and we got a lot of additional cost to the schools. So for me, where do we draw a line in the sand and say, okay, we have so many kids at Centerton, so many kids in Green Township. Are we really maximizing that space? Do we redistrict? I heard Bill talk about the school bus. We're not paying the school bus drivers. It seems like we're putting Band-Aids here and there. We've not done a referendum. I saw there's some underwriting costs for these bonds of a couple $100,000. That's expensive. When do we look to do a referendum versus doing some of these things? When do we, have we whiteboarded that to look at that as well?
Can I speak to that? if
Sure,
that's okay.
yeah.
That's what we just passed the last board meeting, which was the bot process, the scoping period. So
Okay.
we're bringing in some companies to help us take a look at all the facilities, because you pointed out something that's very important. We have 10 buildings, and just to get those 10 buildings up to speed, it will take $95 million, right? We also have those 10 buildings, the stock of those buildings. Whenever we tore down, we being Martinsville, the old high school that was on the Garfield Main property, that building was 64 years old. Whenever they said it had reached its life expectancy, and they built the new high school where it currently resides. That was 64 years old, right? Currently, we have 5 buildings of our 10 that are older than that. And we have to be able to maintain those buildings, and we have to be able to make it so it's a good situation. So your point is very spot on, and that's what this whole scoping period is to do. Take a look at where we can draw the line, and the board can say, look, it doesn't make any sense to have this configuration.
Right.
We need to do something with that.
So if we could
spot
go,
on.
right, so if we have 10 buildings and we have a school enrollment that really calls for having 7 or 8, we sell those buildings and take that and roll it up in maybe fixing the other buildings. I mean, I know the high school's pushing, I've been out for 40-some years, so I mean, we're tapping that life expectancy at the high school. And so I know we want to have these buildings and we don't want to give these things up, but I think we're going to have to really look hard. So during this scope of work or scope of whatever you're doing, as you're looking at these things, I think we have to look at it in a couple different vantage points.
Yes.
What's enrollment going to look like in 5 years? I mean, will we need all 10? Will we need 8? I know we put a lot of money in Centerton because that's where the STEM school is. But if we're not at capacity there, do we take those kids, Green Township kids, and place them somewhere else? And I know this is not a fun conversation for a lot of families and parents, but, you know, I just really worry about, I looked earlier, it said benefits and salaries and some of those things, that's eating up a chunk of our revenue. When do we say, okay, we got to draw a line in the sand? We brought on a lot of first-year teachers, so they shouldn't be as expensive as the older teachers, but we're bringing on and we're doing a lot more as a school. I think we need to refocus and stay in our lane, and you and I have had this conversation. How do we just stay in our lane and teach reading, writing, arithmetic, and not try to counsel everybody and do all these other things that cost a lot of money and bring a lot of money to the bottom, cost a lot of money for our bottom line? That's just my impact, or my thoughts. I was looking at the wrong number because it looked like it had moved us more towards the middle. But when I look at this, I mean, I don't see how enrollment here, so this is hard to look at because I don't see enrollment.
I can speak to enrollment. Our enrollment in the last 3 years went up 2 years ago.
Okay.
Last year it had a dip, and now we're up again.
Okay,
So,
good.
talking with the city and the county, here in the last few weeks, some of the plats where houses are coming online, it's going to continue to have
Okay,
more
good.
housing. So that's a good thing. However, that doesn't tell us where we need to build or where we need to focus or remodel or what we need to do, and that's part of this whole scoping, so it's
Right.
spot on.
And Eric, when we look at the houses that will be built, they'll be probably in the lower end of the echelon, so we got to make sure we look at that, and that's not
Yes.
going to generate the tax base perhaps, because I've heard the average house price is going to be lower than 200. So anyway, I just think there's a lot of scope work to
A
do.
lot of moving parts.
Exactly, before we draw a line in the sand and sign on the
Yeah.
bottom and say, this is what we want to do.
And that's, this is tough. And talking with the audience, I see a lot of our kids here. That's why we're having this discussion, is for these kids and the future kids that are going to come along. Because this has not been done in Martinsville for years. They've not had a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 15-year plan, and had these tough conversations. So we're now having the tough conversations, which makes it very uncomfortable at the same time, but it's very important. And we're not going to dismiss that. We're not going to kick the can down the road anymore, because you can't do that with the stock of buildings we have, with 5 of them well over what the old high school was. If we kick it down the road another 5 years, look at where those buildings are at that point. And then you're going to say, hey, we got to be able to, when you flush the toilet, you want it to go down. When you turn the water on, you want it to work. Whenever you have rain, you want the kids not have to dodge water puddles and the staff not to have water running down the walls. That's not acceptable for Martinsville. Other communities are doing this. We can do this. Martinsville has always, I've been here since 1994, has always taken care of its kids. And this is a time that this board is now saying, we're going to take care of our kids, and we're going to take care of the future kids that are going to come through here. Because I think it's important. These kids in this room are important. The kids that are going to follow them is important. If other communities can do it, why can we not do it? That's just how I feel. So that's where I will go to bat and go to battle for our kids, our staff, our bus drivers, our custodians, because people deserve the best here. Thank you. You're welcome. I'm done.
I second that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of good comments already on the improvements that we've made to some of the things in place now. at the athletic fields, so.
Yeah, and I'll say, when we did the facility walkthrough, if I saw the HVAC system at my house that are in half of the schools, I'd be calling Caleb Stitt or anyone else I could get on the phone. Being honest with you, and I'm glad we're not putting Band-Aids on. Shelley pointed that out. These systems are failing, and I've got 3 kids in school. I don't want them to freeze at Bell or at Paragon, and those 2 are in better conditions than some of the others, so I appreciate this administration, the maintenance department, actually addressing the issues instead of just putting lipstick on it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any
Yeah,
other
no.
public comment? Courtney, don't forget the time.
Tabitha Maxwell, and Shelley kind of stole my thunder with a little bit of it, meaning. So with this $95 million worth of repairs that are needed, out of that, what is necessary and what is going to be earmarked for athletics and stuff like that? And with that, are we going to earmark any of it for our arts departments? So the auditorium at the high school, or putting anything like that in for the middle schools or anything like that? So that's just my question for you guys. When you guys do look at that, I would like to know if any of that is going to go towards the arts or if we're going to stick it all towards the sports department. I'd like it to be equal. I love sports as much as everybody else, but I was also a choir geek for 8 years, and I do know when I was in school, we didn't really get the same amount of funds for our department. We were wearing the same dresses as people in there 10 years ago. So, like I said, just want to make sure that's equal. And then, actually, that's all I have, because Shelley stole all my thunder. So you guys have a great night.
Thank you.
Any comments?
And I think if I remember right, on the capital projects list, I did see where they were addressing the stage at the high school. That
Yes.
was one of the things. So it's good.
These are all going to be great topics for our scoping period.
And I, again, will emphasize, I was in the band and choir both, so I would say that I would definitely, and athletics, so I think they all are equal. Any other public comments? All right, then
Want me to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a
Yeah.
motion to adjourn the bond hearing.
I'll second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to adjourn, so I will have a roll call. Dan Conway, what do you
Aye.
vote? Luke
Aye.
Jackson?
Aye.
Matt Hankins, aye. Meeting is adjourned. Next, our third, the additional appropriation hearing meeting will now come to order. And I would ask Mr. Boland if you would please tell us about that.
Okay. Jacob, do you want to speak to the additional appropriation for any clarification?
Yeah, so again, this is the public hearing to take comment on the appropriation, assuming you guys authorize the issuance of the bonds. This would authorize pulling the proceeds of the bonds into your budget so that you can spend them. We've put out a notice in both local papers, and now would be the time to take public comment on the appropriation of those proceeds.
Yeah, public comment. If we have any public comment that would like to speak on the appropriations. None appearing. Then that's all the comments we have on this. I would like to make a motion to, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion. We adjourn the additional appropriation hearing.
I'll second.
There's been a motion to adjourn in a second. We'll have a roll call vote to approve. Dan Conway, how do you vote?
Dan, do you vote?
Dan, how do you vote? To adjourn the meeting?
I think he's muted.
He's muted. Virginia's a long way away.
Luke?
Aye.
Aye.
Matt Hankins, aye.
He's unmuted if you want to ask him. Dan, do you motion to adjourn?
Dan Conway, how do you vote to adjourn the meeting? I don't think,
I'll take that as an aye.
yeah, I think it's an aye. Yeah. Motion carried, meeting is adjourned. Next. Welcome to the regular session of the Martinsville School Board meeting. Believe me, I'm going to thank Jackie next month, but anyway, I'd like to welcome everybody to the school board meeting tonight and why we're always here. The next item, and I'll turn this over to Mr. Bolin, is for our student recognition, which I thoroughly enjoy each month. Mr. Bolin.
Okay, we have some great students to recognize here this evening. And we talked about performing arts, performance areas. We have some outstanding, talented young people. And Patriot Day occurred September 11th. And we had some great activities that took place throughout our district. But there were a couple that we really wanted to highlight for everybody here. Ms. Fraley, would you like to come up to the mic, and I'll speak as you come walking up to the mic, because you have some kids you want to introduce. Oh, yes, please. We want to see them. They did something at John R. Wooden that was very, very moving, very impactful, and I think it was impactful on the students there and the staff. So would you like to speak to what you were able to accomplish and pull off?
Sure. So we are Fast Forward Broadcasting, and we are 15 members strong at John R. Wooden. This is our third year broadcasting, and we definitely started out as a class, but we are not a class. On every first day, I tell them that we are a business, and we have even moved from a business into a program. We have students that approach them and ask how they can become a part of our program all the time. And I am so proud of this group. None of these students here signed up for Fast Forward. In our third year, every single one of them were recruited, mostly by our past Fast Forward crew and definitely by me. But each one of these students, and I want to step back so that you guys can see them, but each one of these students are truly special individuals. Each one of them shine in their own way. It's a very diverse group, for sure. I would like to introduce them, if you don't mind. This is Mackenzie Johnson, Mackenzie Higgins, Presley Drake, Cash Garner, Emma Hargis, Aubrey Lawson, and Izzy Wolf. Again, we have 15 total, but these are the ones that could make it. Lots of them had games and such tonight. But nonetheless, we've produced a lot of programs. You can find us on YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel. It is called Fast Forward 411. We have produced 104 videos so far. But this year we decided, and I've had a little bit of, they were a little bit angry with me at first because we originally had a new segment every single week. And it got to the point where, oh my word, I felt like I was drowning a little bit, and I wanted to do different things with them. And they are so creative. So they always have good ideas, and they are very, very good about watching a calendar, and they know what's going on. And nonetheless, we saw, 9/11 was coming up, and Mr. Cutrup is just wonderful with us. He pretty much gives us a green light anytime we ask anything. We get that green light, and I know that we're very fortunate in that. So we're also very cautious and careful and try to be responsible with that. But we decided that we wanted to do a 9/11 segment, but we wanted to do more than a video, and we wanted to get more than just us involved. So Mr. Cutrup gave us the green light, and we went out and we bought glow necklaces, and not going to lie, we decided to do this the Thursday before the Monday. So we're a little last minute with things, but we do get things done. Thank goodness for Amazon. But we ordered these glow necklaces, and they came in on Sunday evening before our event on Monday, so that was wonderful. But these guys went out some soft music, and they're like, Mrs. Fraley, why don't we say the names of all 3,000 people who lost their lives that day? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like immediately, you know, I mean, I was paused, and they know they make me cry a lot and with good tears. These guys are truly amazing individuals. But, so we had volunteers up in the press box of the football field, and they read the names. And right after this event, we like to eat in our classroom a lot as well. So while we were feasting, we decided we want to improve that next year. So we've got some really good ideas for next year. But these guys are, you know, I lead them, but we are 100% a team. They have daily deadlines, not just weekly. They have daily deadlines. They stress out. They work hard, but they do. We end up pushing that button at the end, and we produce great stuff. So I'm very, very proud of them, and I want to thank you guys for recognizing you know, what they do and the hard work they put in. They're all involved in lots and lots of things, and I'm just super proud of them. So thank you so much for this recognition.
You are quite welcome. We wanted to share with the audience a snippet of their video that you all produced, put together. This was very well done. So, Courtney?
Good morning, Wood, and welcome to our special Fast Forward segment, our tribute to 9/11. I'm Logan Whaley, and with me today is Vincent Rush, A. Wolf, and Mackenzie Johnson.
Guys, today is September 11th, 2023. We at Fast Forward have created this segment as a tribute of remembrance, honoring the 2,977 people killed in the terror attacks of September 11th, 2001.
We students were not yet born when this attack took place. We know that the day changed more than the skyline in New York City.
That's right, Vincent. The attacks changed a generation of people, our military, and our world.
That day's destruction and devastation did not condemn this country to a future filled with fear.
No, this loss, as profound as it was, did not break the soul of this nation. It made us stronger.
Exactly, Logan. That day fortified Americans with pride and patriotism and created a spirit of service in the hearts of a new generation.
Our generation.
Guys, that fateful day fundamentally changed our nation and our military for the better.
We now observe Patriot Day annually on September 11th as a national day of service and remembrance for the thousands of people that died in this 9/11 attacks.
Watch now as we have created a video to commemorate the significance of today.
"22 years ago, the world changed in an instant. It was an ordinary day in September. But that day became something that would be forged in our memories forever. What unfolded that day was an attack on the very heart of our country. An attack that was designed to drive fear and break the spirit of the United States. But it did not work. Our spirit prevailed. Our commitment to the ideas that founded this country grew stronger, and our commitment to one another as Americans and as humans got us through those dark days. We will always remember those that we lost on that September day. We will always remember the brave first responders who represented the best of us and jumped into harm's way, helping the victims. And we will always remember the men and women of our military, soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and guardsmen, who stood up and put their lives on the line in the months and years after 9/11 to protect this country. The events of that day proved who we are and what we stand for, proved that we are not strangers. We are all mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters. We are co-workers and colleagues and friends. And when history calls on us, we answer. On this 22nd anniversary of 9/11, we remember that in both our darkest and brightest days, we are the United States of America. And to those that have fought and continue to fight for those beliefs, we thank you, we honor you, and we vow never to forget.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was a wonderful tribute group. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was not the only thing that happened on that day. We had a group of students at Martinsville High School that are in our programs, and you can see pictures of them here. We have Hannah Fisher, Justin Stanfield, Eli Bennett, Maliki Acock, and Jeb McKinney. They took it upon themselves to honor the victims by walking up 110 flights of stairs that day. That was what they wanted to do to honor the fallen. So let's give them a round of applause and a great job there as well. We could highlight others, but my goodness, what our students do and what our staff does on a daily basis is inspiring, it's moving, and it's outstanding. So great job to our students there. Now we have a few more students we want to recognize. This is what we do. This is what we do. This is what we're about here in Martinsville. And we have a couple more students that we would like to recognize and give our congratulations to. Mr. Ryan Wagner, would you like to step up and introduce the students you have with you tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Bolin. First of all, I owe an apology to my two guests tonight. I told them they'd be in and out in 10 minutes at the start of the 7 o'clock meeting. I did not know there were 3 special hearings before that, so to Emma and Kevin, I apologize. I would first like to invite up to, next to me on the podium, Emma Heacock. Emma is a senior currently at Martinsville High School, but it's her achievement as a junior that we are inviting her here tonight to be recognized. We recently received notification that Emma has qualified as a semifinalist for the National Merit Scholarship, which selects students for their consideration based on their PSAT scores, which Emma took last fall as a junior. Only 16,000 students are selected across the country as semifinalists for this scholarship. That accounts for less than 1% of all students in the country. This is an achievement that very few students at Martinsville High School ever receive. From those 16,000 semifinalists, 7,000 students will be awarded a National Merit Scholarship next spring, totaling a grand total of $28 million in scholarship money that will be awarded to those 7,000 winners. We wish Emma the best of luck, and we are very proud of her achievement. We'd like to recognize her here tonight. And we hope next spring we'll be here again to announce her as a winner of the scholarship as well. Thank you. Next, I'd like to ask Kevin Wong to come up here next to me. I've invited Kevin here tonight. He's a graduate of the class of 2023 from Martinsville High School, and I would like for him to help share with me to the board the ways in which he's had opportunities at Martinsville High School that helped him to be successful for college. And just to kind of put things into perspective on the achievements that Kevin had while he was at Martinsville High School, Kevin went to college here this fall with an astounding 57 college credits already earned. 25 of those credits were awarded to Kevin for passing AP exams, and 32 were awarded for his passing of dual credits courses that we offer at Martinsville High School. Kevin is currently attending Indiana University, and I'd like for Kevin to come up and say a few words about how his opportunities at the high school have helped set him up for success at IU.
So first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Ryan Wagner and the board for allowing me a great opportunity to be here. And to reiterate some of his points, so having 57 credits, that means you're very close to being a junior. And I have not even stepped foot in university before, so that's an accomplishment that I'm very proud of. And there's incredible opportunities at our high school to empower especially juniors and seniors to take Ivy Tech credits, AP credits, Vincent's credits, whatever credits you need. And whenever you go to college, those save you tens of thousands of dollars in years of education. So that's something I will always be grateful for Martinsville High School for. And that's, yeah, pretty much all I've got today. And if there's any questions from the board, I'll go ahead and answer them now.
What's your major?
So my major is finance, so I'll be a Kelly student.
Kelly, okay, good, congratulations. You think you'll be able to graduate in 2 years? Fingers crossed?
I hope for the best, but it's
Yeah.
probably gonna be like 2.5,
Oh.
3 years instead.
Oh, darn.
But, no.
Congratulations. Go
But-
Hoosiers.
Exactly. Kelly, one of the top 10 business schools in
Yeah.
the country. I'm very proud.
Yeah.
So.
I would like to know about how much money that is. That is quite a bit of money in 2 years.
$50,000.
I was
I've got
gonna
IU
say.
kids. That's $50,000.
Yeah. For this year, it's $29,000 a year
Yeah.
at IU, so it's
There you
pretty
go.
expensive. Yeah.
Well, congratulations, and keep us posted on what you're doing in the future. So that's
Yeah,
exciting.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you all. Next, are there any public comments regarding the agenda?
Mr. Wagner?
Do you want to give them an exit?
What's the agenda item?
The policy 1220, employment of the superintendent.
Excuse me, Mr. Wagner, can we ask those people if they would like to leave?
Yeah,
They
they
could
wanna
exit
leave.
now.
Yeah. If they don't, yeah.
Listen to Mr. Wagner.
Listen, and he's very good to listen
He
to,
is.
but
Flee while you can. Flee while you can.
Thank you, students and staff. We really appreciate you being here tonight.
Mr. Wagner, you ready to speak?
I'm never ready, but I will. So I'm good to go. I read through all these things. Oh my gosh, one of the things that maybe you ought to put in those NOLA documents is that you guys perhaps hiring some sort of, I'm going to need a marriage counselor in the next few years because I come to all these school board, my wife will never watch the school board meeting. She won't know I said that. But it's kind of like, oh my gosh, to plow through all those things. And so I just am in awe that you guys read all those things. I'm always looking for like what fell through the cracks or something. Very appreciative that when I found a couple of things before, you guys have looked at it. So I hope likewise you're thinking, oh, we hadn't thought of that. This may be something that I'm over my head in this. I don't know if it's something required by law. It was Bill Tutterow who said many years ago when we were considering some things in terms of athletics, he said, let's create some things we can live with. And so in terms of the different director positions that are appearing in the contract, and this is kind of funny because the director of maintenance, loved him in class. I love him more now that he's grown up. The director of student services, all of these different people. This has nothing to do with them, just like last time when I was kind of like, I'm not trying to say anything about Mr. Boland. He's just not going to be superintendent until he's 908 years old. So it was kind of like, I wanted to curb some things there. This is not a matter of curbing some things. This is a matter of opening some things up. And I know that the football coach, in the contract, it says I have this many assistants, this many, this and that. But it doesn't say this guy has to be in charge of safeties, this guy has to be in charge of cornerbacks, so on and so forth. Those are his decisions. So if I wonder, and it's kind of hard to explain, but in there, it lists these positions that haven't been there before. And I think we need those positions. I don't know if there's a way to give the superintendent the power to say, you get 5 directors, you know, and these are all the restrictions on them, and these are all the parameters, and these are things they can do, and not actually list the positions. And legally, like I said, I don't know, maybe that's not something that can be done. Maybe it's required, because I think the superintendent going forward is going to want that kind of leeway. There may come a day when maybe we don't, I don't know, need some certain director, you know, not the person. And so maybe so many positions. Because I know previous administration years ago, the person said, well, I'll just be in charge of finance. We don't need that finance person anymore. You know, things like that. And so rather than say, when I started in Martinsville 37 years ago, there was a superintendent in charge of this, and this person. Not saying we don't need the positions, but I'm wondering if we need to actually define them. Because it may be somebody says, hey, we need a superintendent, assistant superintendent in charge of shutting Carl Wagner up. And then that's not in the contract. So it's not a criticism of positions. It's just kind of like, unlike last time when I want to take some power away, I'd like to give the superintendent a little bit of leeway there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Any other public comments on the agenda?
Hi, I'm Jen Knuckles Stafford. I am the registrar at Martinsville High School, and I wanted to talk really quickly about policy 8330, student records, that you're going to be bringing up for first read tonight. I just want to encourage you to look at that and modify it to include student records can be stored and maintained electronically. My colleagues told me I should come in here with Band-Aids wrapped around my fingers to show you the number of paper cuts that I get in a day having to deal with files, and how much time I spend every day scanning documents so I could email them to other schools and other institutions. That's how we do business in 2023. We need to be able to have our student records maintained electronically. We have our students apply to school electronically. We need to have the records be electronic as well. Everything we need is in Skyward. We can print it off, send it to wherever it needs to go. Electronic records are the way to go. Because as you read through that 8330 document, on page 5, it says that the board authorizes microfilm and electromagnetic processes to maintain and preserve records. I'm a little concerned that when these things are copied and pasted in, like all of the things that Mr. Wagner was talking about, maybe aren't getting caught, because I don't think we have microfilm anymore. I'm not quite sure what an electromagnetic process is, but I don't think I want to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have the consent agenda, the executive session, the payroll claims, payroll report, budgetary claims, personnel report. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
The consent agenda, there's been a motion and second to approve it. We will have a roll call vote. Dan Conway, approve.
Yes.
Luke Jackson,
Aye.
Heather Staggs,
Aye.
and Matt Hankins, aye. Motion carried.
Matt, now if I can interject, one of the people involved in that consent agenda and that approval is our new safety director, who I'd like to call up here to the front real quick so you all can see him. We can get a visual, and I'll read a little excerpt about his past here. The MSD of Martinsville announces Chris Wright as the safety director for the Metropolitan School District of Martinsville, a 1988 graduate from Brown County High School. I don't know if they'll hold that against you at all, Chris. Chris has served in the military and police force for 30 years. During that time, he served as military police and as 1st Marine Division Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Chris has worked at the Brown County Sheriff's Department, Trafalgar Police Department, Perry Township Police Department. A certified SRO trainer, Chris is motivated to learn and is well-versed in school safety programs such as Raptor and Stop It, radio coordination, and safety cameras. He's already been hard at work at that. Chris possesses a K-9 with certifications in finding narcotics through vehicle, building, and open-air searches. The MSD of Martinsville is looking forward to the focus and implementation of student and staff safety measures with your leadership. So let's welcome Chris Wright as our new safety director.
I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. It's the first week and a half in the I cannot say enough about how great it is. I've not met anybody here, within my office, anything along those lines. So everything is going fantastic. It is a lot like something fire over right now. But at some point we're going to level off and things will start looking over. So I'm available 24/7, 365. So if anybody has any issues, my office right now is downstairs. You come in the main door. So feel free to stop in, see me, or call me, or however you make contact with me. I'll look forward to it.
Thank you. Okay, I'll move on to school field trips, student field trips, or professional travel. In this case, it's professional travel. Project Lead the Way Launch Conference. We have Sharon Gooden and Bethany Harriman wanting to attend that. I recommend approval.
Okay, we have the Project Lead the Way Launch Conference. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the Project Lead the Way Launch Conference. Roll call vote. Dan Conway,
Aye.
Luke Jackson,
Aye.
Heather Staggs,
Aye.
Matt Hankins, aye. Motion carried.
Okay. We now have the report curriculum moment. Mrs. Lips.
Good evening. The new 2023 Federal Accountability Report Card was released to all public schools through the Accountability Portal last Friday, September 15th, which began a 3-week review period. At this time, the federal accountability reports are embargoed and have not been released to the general public. More to come. School performance report requirements. The Indiana Department of Education has developed a school performance report to replace the A through F school grades. This school performance report is for each public school and will be available beginning Friday, September 22nd. Martinsville will be compliant by posting its performance reports on the district website prior to October 15th, once those instructions are released by the IDOE. I'd like to give a special shout out tonight to the MSD of Martinsville and students. We have 5 finalists. 5 of our high school students have qualified this year for the Lilly Scholarship Award. They are finalists for this award. Campbell Cox, Casey Etter, Sarah Miller, Sadie Skaggs, and Rachel Van Zandt. Congratulations to those students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Lips. Board, you have in front of you the first reading. No action to be taken tonight. We had a couple people speak to them already. So just for the public's information, this is the first reading on the next 20 policies.
And thank you to the staff and community that reads these, because we don't always see what you work with every day, so it's very helpful.
All right. Next on the agenda is old business.
And we do not have any old business updates at this time. The next is the action items. So this is second read. So you have the opportunity to go ahead and vote on these as a block. This would be policy it's listed as number 1 through number 21. And I would recommend approval of these policies.
Okay, we have policies 1 through 21. Do I have a motion to approve these policies?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve these policies. Roll call, Dan?
Aye.
Luke?
Aye.
Jackson? Heather Staggs?
Aye.
Matt Hankins? Aye. Motion carried.
Okay, the next thing we have 1028 resolution. I recommend approval of the 1028 resolution.
Okay, we have the 1028 resolution. Do we have a motion to approve it?
I'll make a motion to approve the 1028 resolution.
And I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we approve the 1028 resolution. Dan Conway,
Aye.
Luke Jackson,
Aye.
Heather Staggs,
Aye.
Matt Hankins, aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. The next one is the bond resolution. I recommend approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the bond resolution.
I'll second.
There has been a motion to approve the bond resolution. Is there any questions from board members? None appearing. Dan Conway,
Aye.
Luke Jackson,
Aye.
Heather Staggs,
Aye.
Matt Hankins, aye. Motion carried on the bond resolution.
The next one is additional appropriation resolution. I recommend approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a motion to approve the additional appropriations resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve the additional appropriation resolution.
I'll second.
Been a motion to approve the additional appropriation resolution. Are there any questions from board members? Okay, none. Dan?
Aye.
Luke Jackson?
Aye.
Heather Staggs?
Aye.
Matt Hankins, aye. Motion carried on the additional appropriation resolution.
The next item is the school security officer agreement that was signed by the city. Recommend approval.
Okay. Do we have a motion on the school security officer agreement?
I'll make a motion to approve the officer agreement.
I'll second.
Okay, are there any questions on the school security officer agreement? Okay, then I'll ask for a roll call vote. Dan Conway,
Aye.
Luke Jackson,
Aye.
Heather Staggs,
Aye.
Matt Hankins, aye. Motion carried on the school security officer agreement.
The next item is civic standards material request. I recommend approval.
Do we have a motion for the civic standards material request?
I'll make a motion we approve the civic standards material request.
And I will second.
There's been a motion and second to approve the civic standards material request. Are there any questions from board members? Okay, none.
I will say I've read through that 4th edition, and it is very, very solid as far as it goes. So I appreciate Bell Intermediate selecting that as their standard.
Any other board comments? I want to reiterate tonight the 9/11 presentation and our kids knowing about that. I think is so important. So any other comments or questions? We'll have the roll call vote for the civic standards material request. Dan?
Aye.
Luke Jackson?
Aye.
Heather Staggs?
Aye.
And Matt Hankins, aye. Motion carried.
The next item is to approve salvage items for the online auction. There are 5 John Deere mower decks. I recommend approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the salvage items.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the salvage items for online auction. Any questions? None appearing. Roll call vote. Dan Conway?
Aye.
Luke Jackson?
Aye.
Heather Staggs?
Aye.
Matt Hankins, aye. Motion carried.
The next item is the BSCA Stronger Communities Grant, which is a grant that we've received to help support our HYPE program at Bell Intermediate. also JRW, and then the after-school tutoring programs. So this is an ongoing grant that will go over the next few years. So recommend approval.
Do we have a motion for the BSCA Stronger Communities Grant for $228,000?
I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
There's been a second. So the motion to approve the BSCA Stronger Communities Grant. Any questions? Okay. Dan Conway,
Aye.
Luke Jackson,
Aye.
Aye.
and Heather Staggs, aye. Matt Hankins, aye. Motion carried.
The next item is the 2024 Secured School Safety Grant in the amount of $100,000 from the state of Indiana. It supports our salary and benefits of additional safety personnel that we'll be able to hire now. So I recommend approval.
I gladly make a motion to approve the safety grant.
And I'll second.
Okay, there's been a motion and second to approve the 2024 Secured School Safety Grant of $100,000. Any comments or questions from board members? And appearing, I'll call for a vote. Dan Conway,
Aye.
Luke Jackson,
Aye.
Heather Staggs,
Aye.
and Matt Hankins, aye. Motion carried.
Okay, the next set of action items I would like to combine into one. It's donations, but I want to list the donators because they deserve public recognition. Donation of books to the Martinsville High School AP English Literature and Composition course. Donation from Martinsville Candy Kitchen to Martinsville Athletics in the amount of $250. Donation from Martinsville Family Eye Care Center to Martinsville Athletics, $500. Donation from Clear Creek Fisheries to Martinsville Athletics, $500. Donation from Chapman Ortho to Martinsville Athletics, $1,000. Donation from FlowSource to Martinsville Athletics, $4,000. Donation from Neal and Summers to Martinsville Athletics, $4,000. Donation from Anonymous Person to Elementary and Bell Intermediate Robotics teams in the amount of $5,800. Donation from FlowSource to the MSD of Martinsville Robotics teams, $1,500. Donation from Remodel Health, Justin Clements to Martinsville High School Tennis in the amount of $1,000. And donation from Boren, Oliver, and Coffee to the Martinsville High School Tennis team in the amount of $500. I recommend approval of these generous donations.
Do I have a motion for the donations to be approved?
Can I say just one quick thing? Just a quick note on 37 and 38. The robotics program is excellent. I think it's an awesome opportunity for everybody. Is that just, I'm not entirely in tune with it, is that something that all K through 6 students have the opportunity to participate with if they wish to do so?
Absolutely, and also with coursework during the school day.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
And I'll
Thank you,
second.
Luke. Thank you, Heather. There's been a motion to approve and a second for all the donations. Do you have any other comments or questions on those? I'd like to thank all the people who do donate. Our community is very strong in that, and the students really appreciate what is done for them. So I will call for a roll call. Dan Conway,
Aye.
Luke Jackson,
Aye.
Heather Staggs,
Aye.
Matt Hankins, aye. Motion carried on the donations. Now, do we have any public comments?
Yes, Daniel Pond.
Hello, my name is Daniel Pond. I am an educator. I earned a bachelor's degree in fine art with a concentration in graphic design from the University of Georgia and a master's of education with a minors in gifted ed from the University of Alaska in Anchorage. My family, wife Kimberly of 35 years, and my son Jared and I have been residents of Morton County, Martinsville, Indiana for 26 years. I have taught here in the Martinsville School District as a substitute teacher during the time of Jerry and Lisa Sanders. I have also taught here gifted ed in Central Elementary and have participated in the Lunch Mentor Program and Bible Club at Green Township Elementary School. I taught art and design to the Homebound Homeschool Association and on a collegiate level, visual communications at the Art Institute of Indianapolis and currently at Ivy Tech. I was the Safe Place Host Homes Coordinator for Morgan County. This is a 24/7 community crisis program for youth and their families. I have also been a business owner here in the county as a graphic designer and construction and handyman. This first installment focuses on my son Jared and his trek through the MSD. He began in preschool with Ann's Country Kids, led by Ann Jackson at Eastview Christian Church. He began elementary school at Green Township, then to East Middle at the time, and the high school, graduating in 2012. He was an above-average student, participating in band, football, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, youth and adult praise team at church. He went on to Indiana State University, earning a degree in exercise science. He currently is co-owner of PRT, Physical Resilience Training here in Martinsville, and also an outstanding officer for the Martinsville Police Department. His success is not a fluke. Our family is Christian. We believe America is founded on Judeo-Christian values. He was churched and educated here in Morgan County with parents concerned for his welfare, and we partnered with this community for his wholeness. He has weathered concerns and setbacks, but not alone. He has been taught the goodness of God regardless of our mistakes, and I believe he is a shining example of what our founding fathers envisioned for American education. But there are voiced concerns regarding the level of education for our current students of Martinsville. This is a call for action to parents, this community, and Board of Education to restore hope and a future for these who depend on us to help them be all God created them to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Murray.
Just to reiterate, everybody gets 3 minutes, and we won't be bantering back and forth, so.
My name is Mark Murray. I try to come to most of the board meetings, but just had a little bit of encouragement. I've been helping out with our band. My daughter's in the color guard, but I've been helping out doing their competitions, helping them transport all their equipment that is heavy. We got a lot of parents that are helping the ECOCs that are here help out and do their share. But you get to see the kids and how they do before these competitions. They're great. But there was an incident a couple weeks ago with some of the equipment tipping over. It didn't get secured down in the truck the right way. And it tipped over on the ride to Brownsburg. And I watched one young man, I won't say names, but I watched one young man when Mr. Bell from in charge of the band said something. He stepped up, took the credit, and said, "Hey, it was my mistake. I was loading." And that impressed me. That he's a senior. The kid is a senior. I was impressed because there's people I know as adults that would not do that. So we're doing something right, and I just wanted to encourage, give that encouragement that we're doing something right here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carl Wagner.
Mr. Pond, Jared also ran track. It's okay, you couldn't list everything that he does, but yeah, he and Lee Nelson were real important to me. They still are. It was unfortunate I couldn't go up to Lee's wedding in Canada, but just prime time people, like you said. And I think, again, this is my 37th year here at the school and 42nd year in public education. And I'm just going to reiterate, I'm sounding like a broken record, I know, but there's a lot of stuff out there where people are trying to say this about the MSD of Martinsville, you know, whatever it is. And it used to be other stuff, right? We all know about that stuff. And it was like, no, that's not true. Where are you getting that from? I just don't see a lot of these things, and I'm not blind to it. I'm in the Senior Success Center every day. I don't deliberately eavesdrop on the kids, but I'm just hearing good things. I'm hearing people say great things about this teacher, and, you know, my parents said he was going to be like this, but he's awesome, and so on and so forth. And I continue to have energy without coffee each and every day because and there are some new young teachers we've gotten the last few years, and I'll go up and say, you can't leave. You can't leave anytime soon because you fire me up. You know, you make me want to be here. And I'm forever grateful. I just can't imagine going somewhere else. I have been given so much here, but it's not about me. I have been given the freedom and the opportunity to help kids, you know, first in the classroom and, you know, and then in my present position. And it's just, it's exciting. And it's kind of like what you said. And it's neat. We need people like Jared coming back to our community. Because it probably sounds bad, but everybody doesn't have to go to college. And you're never going to hear that from me in the Senior Success Center. Never. But those ones who are going to college and are very strong students, and people are saying, we need to have some of these people staying here in Martinsville so we can move this medical device firm, or we can move this, I don't know, pharmaceutical firm or whatever here in an ideal location between, you know, a university and the state capitol. And so, yes, we need to crank out those kids and have them here, but we need to make sure it's a place where they want to come back. And I think when we're at each other's throats, and make no mistake, when the outside world will have us doing that, and we're looking for stuff that isn't there. And I'm just telling you, come into my room anytime. I'll walk around with you. I'll introduce you to teachers and let you know, this is why I want to be here. And if this person leaves or this person leaves, whatever. So proud to be an Artesian. I was really excited. Everything that's going on. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Any other?
Jerry Smith? Pass? Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, so we'll move on to superintendent's comments.
Okay, I'll make these quick. I wanted to give a shout out to Mid-America Radio Group. They sponsored a scholarship, and this is the description of their scholarship that they just put in this last year. Mid-America Radio Group, WCBK, issued a $1,000 donation towards the broadcasting scholarship for a class of 2023 MHS student, and that was Luke Cheatham going into that field. And we want to thank them for that donation that they did last year to assist him in his academic endeavors. Also, tomorrow we have a special day planned at Smith Elementary, and Elaine Waltz, fourth grade student with us at Smith, she rang the bell after 2.5 years of her battle here with cancer, and that was done yesterday. And we're bringing her in tomorrow, and one of our other staff members is going to be in there as well. And we're going to have a bell ring in at the school. And it's going to be a special moment because she's a special young lady, an inspiration to all of us. Wanted to let you know, just like we mentioned with Jared, we have some special kids. We've seen them here tonight highlighted. We've got them, and we're going to celebrate tomorrow with this young lady and her family and one of the staff members. Also, golf, girls golf, made it to the regionals. A young team, and I've watched them progress all year. We saw them get better and better and better, and they qualified for the regionals. It's going to be at the Legends on Saturday, so good luck to them. Cross country's in Mid-State on Saturday. Good luck to our fabulous cross-country runners. I say that for you, Mr. Wagner. We have some great talented cross-country runners. The MHS marching band performs at Avon on Saturday. So we have kids representing us in fine fashion all around the region and all around the state, and we're grateful for everything they do. That's all I have.
Okay, any board comments?
Well, I'll say I have something in common with Jared. He graduated from Ann's Country Kids. He probably graduated 1 year. I graduated 36 years and counting. So that's a good start, a good start. But I also wanted to mention, too, one thing that I appreciate with our administration, they do a lot of work with professional development for the staff here in-house. You know, seeing the individuals that want to advance their career professionally and then giving them the tools to do so. Not many districts do that, so I appreciate our administration and the central office, you know, identifying those individuals and giving them the experiences they need for that. So thank you.
I have a comment. I got this email, and I just think it was amazing. Our chamber orchestra was invited to perform along with Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra next Thursday. I believe it's September 28th. Rachel Lanigan has done a phenomenal job with the orchestra program. I think it said that they had 2 periods a day. And that was also working in cooperation with Mr. Bell and also guidance to get that situated. And I've seen the orchestra. There's a lot of kids getting into the orchestra program. And I'm hoping we can increase the band and get more facilities, which is what we were talking about earlier tonight. So I did want to make that comment. That is September 28th at the Ruth Lilly Performance Hall in the Crystal DeHaan Barnhart Center at the University of Indianapolis at 7 p.m., September 28th. So it'll be a week from tonight, if anybody can go to support those students. And that's all the comment I have.
I want to thank everybody that does participate in these meetings, because I think at the end of the day, we're all here for the same reason. So I appreciate everybody's passion and look forward to sharing what we start discussing during our scoping process and moving the district forward and the vision that we're going to create. So thank you all.
Okay, no other closing comments, then do I have a motion to adjourn this school board meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
We just wanted to
Mrs.
brief
I was pushing for 9 o'clock, Matt. I'll second.
Is there an over-under?
I have a motion to adjourn. I have a second to adjourn. We'll have a roll call vote. Dan Conway,
Yes. Aye.
Luke Jackson.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
And Matt Hankins, aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming. Have a nice evening.
Safe travels,
Safe trip
Dan.
home.